And welcome to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. What is old? They're planning for Biden's 80th birthday party. We want to talk about our age caps fair. What makes an old person in 2022? 40% of us lied. Some of you are not going to be surprised by that. But during COVID, there's a study that shows Americans are liars. And the manipulative Musk, it turns out he actually spoke to Putin before the whole Twitter poll debate. Before we get to all that, last week, Mark, you said you were not a cheater. Are you a liar?
I don't think so.
Well, now I'm worried that you might be lying about lying because 40% of us lied during COVID.
Well, I will say I did have it once, the first time in 2020, and I just thought I had a cold. And, with all the people I remember sitting at home. It was February. I thought I had a cold because the things I'd heard about fevers and sore throats and people that couldn't swallow and lose sense of smell and taste, I had none of those. I just felt like I had a cold. So even when I went in, my mom had tested positive. So I went in and I was like, but I don't have it because I just have a cold. And I did the rapid and boom, you have it. So, so last winter, like I would never classify myself as sick, but I had the sniffles, because it's the winter and everybody does. So with the level of we know people that didn't, what's it called? They showed no symptoms, non-symptomatic.
Right.
So I'm sure then that there are people with very, very minor symptoms. So I don't know. I never felt sick enough to get tested because I didn't miss a day of work. I didn't miss a day of practice. I felt fine mostly, except I'd sniffle. So maybe I did have it. I don't know. I wonder if all of us had to be tested every day, how many more people would have popped that had no idea that they had it.
So we'll jump to this because we're already talking about it. Basically, a study came out. They did almost 2,000 people were surveyed. They found that over 40% of the respondents had either misrepresented their COVID status or they failed to follow public health recommendations. Essentially, folks ignored quarantine rules, told someone they were about to see that they had been taking more precautions than they actually were, and didn't mention that they might or did have COVID when they went into a doctor's office. These were all examples that they asked people about during this survey. Having read that, I think 40% is low. I think 40% is probably below the bar of people. I think they're lying now on the survey, personally.
Well, yes, you're probably right. And I think we have in America become spoiled with convenience. And there are lots of, it would be fascinating to poll elementary school teachers where how many kids get sent to school who really are visibly too sick to be at school and are just going to make everyone else sick. But, for parents, the problem of finding daycare, of having to take a day off of work themselves, depending on what you do, it's not, people always think about it's just the money, but depending on what you do, there's kind of there's stuff I got to do today. And I was planning on not having to stay home and watch my kids. So I think there's a lot of, I'm sick, or my kid's sick, but I can't let it interfere with the rest of my day. So the rest of you're going to have to deal with it. And I think that's way before COVID. I think we've been doing that forever.
So would you agree that you are part of the 40% in this study?
It's a fair question because there was never a point. I know there are people who were like, I am not getting tested. I might have it. I feel like crap, but I'm not getting tested. I never did that.
I'll be honest. That was kind of me. I was if I felt sick, I'd stay home, but I was, I did not get tested if I felt sick.
See, I never avoided getting tested because, like I said, the one time I did get tested and I had it. I just was kind of it's like you get an injury. Do you need ice on that? No, I'll be fine. Where some people would slap the ice right on and some are like, no, I'll be okay. I never like I never went to bed early. I just, there's those days in the winter where you go through more tissues than others.
Sure.
And so when I did that, did I have a cold or did I have a very mild case of cold? I don't know.
But I'm sure, like, I think at some point you and I probably, like, were you somewhere, and I'd be like, no, like, I've been home the last couple of days, and realistically I probably had not been home the last couple of days. Like, that just wasn't a truth. So I do think I'm in that 40%. I think that's why I think the number's low. I just find it hard to believe that it's not more than 50%. Here's the really, like, if you want to get really psychological about it, is flip it around. Do you feel like over half of the people in your life were lying to you during COVID? That's where it gets really interesting.
Well,
according to this study, 40 to 50% of the people that you would have run into during COVID were lying to you if they were talking about COVID or their precautions or whether or not they had it or not had it.
Yeah, I mean, you can you can tell the people with personalities. I remember the first time I shook someone's hand, like during this whole thing where they're like, don't shake hands, bump elbows. And, there's an old school guy and he's, I've lived through wars and all this stuff. And he came up and shook my hand and I just instinctively shook it. Sure. And then I was like, it happens all so fast. And I was like, if he just shook my hand, he shook 30 hands today. He shakes everybody's hand. He doesn't care. And like, I kind of wrapped my hand in cellophane and then went and washed it because I was like, So yeah, I'm sure there's lots of people who lied, or because again, if they don't want to be inconvenienced, if they want to go somewhere, they want to watch this, they want to do that, they don't want to sit at home, then they're like, no, I'm good. So yeah.
This is the part about it that it's kind of just makes me think. It's not that it's 40, 50%, because again, I think the number's low. I actually think it's higher. But when you start to flip it on the other side of it and you start to think that it means half of the people were lying to you, it really makes you start to think about your everyday conversations that you're having with the people that you see.
Well, just think, wait, hold on. I don't know why you're so fascinated by this. Just think how much people lie all the time. When you're like, I didn't see your text. I thought I was just so busy. I meant to get back to you. It's been busy.
I don't disagree with that. The difference with this, though, is I think there was a moment in time, regardless of what you believe scientifically, regardless of what your political belief is, there was a point in time where most people agreed that they didn't know what was going on and that, like, they were trying to take precautions. So the point I'm making is this, to me, seems like it's a certain point in history where transparency and honesty with the people closest to you would have been at an all-time high. And then this study comes out and all of a sudden I look at it and I'm like, oh, wow, no, like it probably wasn't like that at all. Everybody was probably just trying to figure out what they needed to say to just either appease people or get what they wanted or get out of the house. It actually flipped for me. I think that's why maybe I'm more fascinated with it than you are.
Well, I think I would bet that people were more honest with those around them. Okay. I think it's kind of when you go out in public or when you go, to the office or whatever, the others are like, no, I'm fine. I'm sure there were millions of people who had a kid sick at home who were like, we're not getting tested because if you're home and you're just sick, we'll keep you quarantined. But all of a sudden, if you test positive, now I live with someone who tests positive. That's one of the reasons that the statistics, and they keep posting them, and you're just like, well, that's not a good representation because there's lots of people that have it that never got tested. So anyway.
So just like I asked you before, you think the number's high or low or just right for people that were lying to you?
I don't know, but that when you look at it that way, it certainly pisses you off a little more, doesn't it?
Well, see, that's what I'm trying to say to you. It's It's one thing to ask yourself, was I part of the 40%? But what happens is when you start to think about the fact that 40% of people were probably lying to you, now all of a sudden the wheels start to turn, and it's really interesting.
Yes. I love
that I just saw your light bulb go off.
I'm with you. Now I'm just thinking how I'm trying to compare it to how much you lie to me on a regular basis. And then was that higher or lower?
40%. So that's where we were at. Palco Federal Credit Union joined today. Credit union membership comes with an array of quality services and financial benefits. As a Palco Federal Credit Union member, you'll enjoy some of the finest banking features available in central Pennsylvania. Tioga, Bradford, Lycoming, Montour, Sullivan, Columbia, Northumberland, Union, just some of the local counties where you can find and benefit from Palco Federal Credit Union.
Their footprint is very much our footprint when you read those.
Yes. Basically, our maps are almost identical. It's pretty wild. Yeah. So just to backtrack then, what is old? You and I have had conversations about age. What does it mean? All those basic philosophical questions. The reason it's coming up again now is President Biden is about to turn 80. My goal today I don't want to have a political conversation about Joe Biden. I want to it's the first time a president will be 80 in office. The irony is when Trump first went in 2016, I said he's a little too old for my liking. Then we elected Biden, and I said the same. Said Biden feels a little too old for my, if I got to pick my ideal candidate, both of them seemed a little too old for me. But now here we are in 2022. When you go back through and look at the last couple of elections, these are the people that we are nominating. Do people need to change their definition of old in 2022, given the people that tend to end up in office?
Well, I was just having this conversation with my aunt within the last 2 days about how cyclical things are. And I remember back when Trump, before the 2020 election, when you knew Trump was going to run again and the Democrats were trying to figure out who was running against him. And the final three were Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren. And I've been having this conversation with my kids that I can't believe all four of these, like one of these four people is going to be president, and they're all over the age of 70. And it's shocking. And I'm blanking. Who's the guy in Florida? The Republican that's Trump?
DeSantis.
He is in his 40s, correct?
I can look it up to be sure. He's younger than the most recent nominees we have had.
I think DeSantis is in his 40s. There's this talk of Josh Shapiro and his weight not only in the state of Pennsylvania but what he could end up doing nationally. He's in his 40s. I think we're going to see a cycle where
he's 44.
DeSantis?
Yeah, 44.
Okay. So, I think things are cyclical. And we had Kennedy back in the day. Then we had Clinton and, Obama was kind of young. And I think regardless of how people think each president did, because obviously if you're a Democrat, you think Trump sucked. And if you're a Republican, you think Biden sucked. And they they both had their good and bad. I don't think any rational person will tell you that, that they didn't. They were both somewhere in the middle. But I think most people kind of sit back and say, we want someone who their decisions has a little longer lasting effect than, these guys who, aren't going to be alive much longer. Sure. I think in 20, and who knows, we've talked about seeing the rematch, which would be so old. It would be like that movie, The Grudge Match, between De Niro and Sylvester Stallone, where there's these old guys boxing. We are coming to a point where we're going to have people that are young. And now when mid-50s seems young, but even if DeSantis doesn't run this time, if he runs in 2028, he's still not 50 yet, or he's right on the cusp. So, which is almost a kid nowadays in politics. So I think the cycle is changing on both sides. We were both, this was kind of like a weird time for us because I just turned 35 and, we made jokes like, now you can run for president. And obviously you had a joke. That's the law, buddy. That's the law.
It's the real deal. And obviously you had a big birthday this year as well. So I think here's what's funny. The older I get, the more age caps or age maxes make sense to me. But I think it's because I just went through like, I don't know if there is another barrier for me to break through as far as like age minimums, right? Like the last 2 decades, I just went through every age barrier to get to finally 35, where I can essentially do what any other adult can do now. I'm trying to think of something above 35. Can you think of something?
You can't play from the gold tees.
That's true. That's true. But what's funny is,
I don't think you can reap the AARP benefits yet.
That's true. So I just went through all of these things, and now that I'm past a lot of them, I kind of bizarrely feel like age caps are fair because I just went through all the minimums. Why would there not be maximums?
Yes, I agree. Well, what in theory, and this goes back to like tribal times where the eldest of the whatever is, because they're supposed to, there's this intrinsic belief that the oldest is supposed to have accumulated the most wisdom throughout life and is able to pass it along and do what's best and explain to those people how to live what's best. We feel like at this time in history, and maybe it's always been this way in history, I'm just aware of it now because this is when I'm alive, but that these politicians who are these old stately men who are supposed to be sharing wisdom are just trying to get reelected. And they're not doing what's best for the world. They're doing what's best for their approval rating. So that's, sometimes I can only imagine back in the tribal days where the eldest of the family said some things that people didn't want to hear, but he thought they needed to hear it. We don't have politicians that say anything that their base, they're afraid to say anything to their base that will piss them off, even if they need to hear it.
That's fair. So you'd be in favor of age caps?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Interesting.
I got nervous when you started with this topic because, now that I'm 50, I thought that's where you were going. I thought it was starting with Mark is old, and which, I feel it every now and then.
No, there's nothing, you don't do anything where I don't know if there's any right or anything that I would take away from you. It's a good question to have because people just don't, like, this sounds awful. People don't die anymore. People live to be 50, 60, 70, 80. I mean, a lot of this stuff was just built when, like, the reason that you were allowed to retire at, 55, 60 is because they thought you'd be dead when you were 65. And that's just, and that's not the case right now. And so I do wonder if there's a conversation to be had about age caps that is overdue given the longevity of life now. That's all.
No, I agree.
Just a conversation. I don't want to take anything away from anybody, but I think it's a fair conversation to start having.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, interesting. Superior Plus Energy Services. What can they do for your home? Propane, heating oil, HVAC services, and more. They provide a peace of mind for you and your family all year long by helping keep your home comfortable and safe while lowering your fuel costs. Together, they're feeding America. Their best offer ever. Sign up now. $275 for you, $25 for a local food bank.
And that's why I wore short sleeves today. You were asking about my summertime because it's warm today and we're running out of warm days. Load up on whether it's propane, whether it's heating oil. Like everyone just waits till the first day it's cold and then they call and then they have 7,000 orders they have to fill. And it's so do it ahead of time. Call Superior today, whether it's oil or propane. And there you go.
You just spoke to me. I was your audience right there. So,
and what's neat is you were like, he is talking to me, and he's right. Yes. I should do it ahead of time, but unless your girlfriend does, it's not going to get done ahead of time.
No, I wrote down call for heating oil as you were talking.
Did you really?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Look at you.
That's why I said I was your audience. That's what I was saying.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Yep.
I want to end with this today because I find it fascinating. Manipulative must, but I don't even mean manipulative. I don't know if it's a negative connotation or a positive connotation yet. I just know that he's playing chess and everyone else may be playing checkers. And it's always fascinating whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. Just to catch people up in case they didn't see it, about a week ago, Elon Musk tweeted a poll and he recommended a peace between Ukraine and Russia. He said, redo elections of annexed regions. Russia leaves if that is the will of the people. Crimea, which was formerly a part of Russia, stays with Russia. The water supply to Crimea is assured, and Ukraine remains neutral. I think he's basically referring that they stay out of NATO. And he put up a Twitter poll for people to vote on whether or not they think that this peace agreement is a good idea or not. Ukraine vehemently was against it. The president tweeted back at him, did not make a very nice gesture in the tweet. And then on top of it, he tweeted, which Elon Musk do you like more? And he did a poll, the one who supports Ukraine or the one who supports Russia, to kind of snap back at him about it. So all of this happened last week, and that's a little fascinating. Like, it's gossipy, drama, everything else. Reports came out today that he actually spoke with Putin before he tweeted his original peace plan poll. Just so that I get this all correctly, Elon Musk spoke directly with Russian President Vladimir Putin before tweeting the proposal to end the war in Ukraine that would have seen territory permanently ceded to Russia. In a mail-out sent to Eurasia Group subscribers, Ann Brimmer wrote that Tesla CEO Musk told him that Putin was prepared to negotiate, but only if Crimea remained with Russia, if Ukraine accepted a form of permanent neutrality, and Ukraine recognized Russia's annexation of different places. So to me, this is why I think you'll love this. To me, this is like the lunch table folded up note. Send your friend over to the other table and ask them if they like them. That's what this feels like. This feels like Putin and Musk were talking, and Musk was like, listen, I'll find out if they're into it or not. And Musk posted a Twitter poll to see if Ukraine would kind of like be down or not. And then sure enough, they, it didn't go the way I think Putin was hoping so. That's how it feels.
That's a great analogy. That is, or is it a metaphor? Whichever one it was. It was good. Yeah, that could very well be the way it went down. Like, yeah, I'll find out for you.
Yeah, that's what. And he used this is okay. So to me, there's nothing like negative or positive. I just find the whole thing fascinating that that's how we're playing this out. The flip side of that, though, is he's talking about buying Twitter on a public platform. He is basically negotiating like the biggest geopolitical decision, like peace talk of all time. And he's doing it on like a public format after talking with Putin. It like, I understand there are other conversations being had. I understand there's closed door meetings and there's like, I get all, I'm not acting like this was the only thing, but it is fascinating that like he's rich enough and he's in the know enough and people think he's intelligent enough. Nobody else could have pulled this off where Putin would have been willing to talk to them and he would have been willing to share it on a platform with all these followers. And then it would have gotten back to Ukraine where they're responding. There's just nobody like that ever, maybe in the history of the world.
I disagree. There's one other person who could have done it, and it's Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, but he doesn't have the followers. I agree with you. Like because of the North Korea stuff, you're exactly right. But he wouldn't have been able to like have a Twitter poll and actually get Ukraine to respond.
I was kidding. I get your point. I get it.
No, I think you're right. Like, I think Rodman's like a close, like right behind. It's not that absurd.
Could you see Biden in the meeting? Someone call Elon Musk. He's not interested. Call Rodman.
Yeah.
Like, he's number 2 in the depth chart. So, I'm fascinated by your cafeteria note. Were you a cafeteria note writer?
No, I just wasn't shy isn't the word, but I just didn't really care. Like it wasn't my priority. Like the whole like boy girl dating thing, it really for me didn't happen until like senior year. Like I just was doing other stuff. I found sports and friends way more fun. So yeah, I kind of missed out on the whole like note passing, like all that stuff.
I'm not sure dating is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to create drama and angst.
That's all. Wait, time out. Were you a note writer?
No, I don't really think I was. That's why I was trying to. I can remember like back in the day, getting a note was like a big deal. Like now you get 1,000 texts a day, but a note was like once a like that was a big deal.
Did you ever do the check yes, check no?
I don't know. No, I don't think I ever did that. I can remember writing notes on gum wrappers.
Okay.
And because we could like a piece of Wrigley's or whatever, and not the tinfoil part on the inside, but the part around it. And you could write a little something and crinkle it up and toss it to someone. I remember doing that because it was really hard to get caught passing a gum wrapper back and forth.
By my junior and senior year, like I was into it. Like people would make the note in one period, walk by your locker, shove it in the, how you had the vents in the locker.
Mm-hmm.
You shove it through, you open up in between classes. There's your notes, you grab them, you go. So like, I remember, but early on, I feel like that stuff starts when you're like in 5th, 6th, like, and
it's more of a middle school thing.
Yeah. And it was just never, I don't know. I kind of missed it.
No,
wasn't a thing.
I think there's a lot of things in life you missed.
I don't disagree, but I wouldn't have wanted to do it any other way. What else do you think I missed? I'll flip this on to you. What else do you think I missed?
I don't know. For anyone who's like, older or whatever, even like me at 50, or whether you're older or on your deathbed or retired, is like, I wouldn't change a thing. Anyone who says they wouldn't change a thing is an idiot. I would have changed something from yesterday. Like if I could go do yesterday again, I would have done it better. Like what the whole like I wouldn't have changed a thing. What? What are you talking about?
You don't believe in that? Like that's not a thing at all for you. Wow.
No, I mean, listen, like I'm
not saying that there aren't.
No, I get that there's hardships and there's things that have formulated who you are today. And if we had more choice through life, we would never choose hardship, which then as you got older in life, you would be lacking because it's part of what builds moral character and stuff. But the whole statement of I wouldn't do anything differently. I mean, come on. I think crazy.
But see, okay, but there's also what you and I can be right at the same time, because I agree with your sentiment that obviously you made mistakes. Obviously you have regrets. Anybody who's like, no regrets, you got some, like you have a couple, like you do. What I'm saying is like, I think you can live in an existence where you don't let them be negative or you don't let them bring you down. And so for me, like, and you're around me enough to know this, like every loss is just a lesson. Like I'm just figuring out like the next phase. And without it, I wouldn't have figured it out. I wouldn't have been who I am. I wouldn't have moved on. Like, so it's just, how are you gauging it? So I agree with you. People have regrets. People want do-overs. Totally agree. But I also think you can say that and also mean it though, of like, I would not trade any of my losses. They have made me better for who I am. I'm a better person, a better coach, a better boyfriend. I'm a better everything because of the losses I've had.
No, and I totally agree. But like I wouldn't have changed a thing. I would have invested in Bitcoin. Like how hard is it? I wouldn't have changed a thing. Like, come on.
All right, no, I'm with you. We'll leave it at that. Let's just shout out Horizon Federal before we get to the big part of the show. Convenient, flexible, simple to open. These are personal accounts with Horizon. They also offer a variety of products and services to meet all of your personal financing needs. Whether you're looking to set up free checking, put away savings, open your child's first account, or set money aside in an IRA, Horizon is here to help. Explore our array of accounts below to see which one is right for you. Got questions? Our friendly staff has answers.
What's fun, just to prove I was listening, when you said RIA, my first thought was, I don't even know what an RIA is.
I had to think
no, it's an IRA. And I do know what an IRA is, but I
sounded like a real banker, right? I just made up a name so people didn't ask what it actually was.
You just made things up, but I was listening, and I was like, "Ooh,
thank you."
I don't know what that is.
Listen, I don't think we did this yesterday, so I wanted to make sure. I don't know if you have something, but this is Mark's minute of uninterruptedness. I leave the floor to you.
Well, today is a great day for people like me because the real baseball playoffs start. And it's 4 games, all the best teams. And, you got Yankees, you got Phillies, you got Dodgers, and you've got, which is right over there on the wall, which you can't see because you're not here, but the Braves. And they go early. The Braves and the Phillies are the early game. They're at 1-something, 105, 135, something like that. So here's my prediction.
To be exact.
107. Okay. For commercials. That's why they do that. So here's my prediction. Baseball is not a time of off days. In football, you want the bye week so you can get healthy, you can scout more, all these things. Football bye week in the playoffs is great. Baseball is a game of rhythm, and these hitters haven't faced live pitching in a week. The pitchers, some of these guys haven't been on the mound in a while. All these teams that just survived in advance, like the Phillies, they all go on the road. The pressure is kind of off them because you get this playoff pressure that you're going to fall flat on your face. Well, they haven't. They've all done well. So coming into today, you've got the rusty good teams against the not quite so good teams, but they're fresh and they're confident and they're in it. So my prediction today is in the top of the first. All these teams that just played are the visitors today. At least two of the 4 games, someone will score in the top of the first, and these juggernauts of the Yankees, the Astros, the Braves, the Dodgers are all going to come into the dugout after the half of an inning and be like, wow, we're losing. And this is only best of 5. I don't think this bye is as lovely as people want the bye because you can't get eliminated in the first round. But this is going to be a tougher series, a tougher week than everyone thinks for these 100-win teams.
Nah, good one. I'm excited. I'm very, very excited. I'm like a 6 on the excitement scale for baseball playoffs. I'm like an 8 like this year. Like I'm actually into it.
It is fun. And I hated the expansion at first, but it's got so many young stars. Like the Soto kid in San Diego has moved on. Machado's still there. The kid, the Rodriguez kid in Seattle, it's going to win Rookie of the Year. That's 21 years old. He's moved on. And then you've got all the big names. You've got the Yankees, you've got the Astros, you've got the Dodgers, and you got the defending world champions. And the local people here, most people here are Yankees or Phillies fans if you are a big fan, and they're all still alive. So it's fun. It's going to be fun.
What's going to be really fun, because of the whole TBS in Atlanta and stuff like that, it is amazing how many Atlanta fans there are in Pennsylvania. It's a little bit like, it's not quite like Yankees or Cowboys or like these America's teams, but the TBS effect, like all the way up into upstate New York, is real. It's a real thing.
When I was in high school, my high school girlfriend was a Braves fan because back then in the 80s, the Braves were on TBS like 135 times a year.
Yeah.
I just sold a house this summer and a client of mine, another female, is a Braves fan. Yep. Has the bumper stickers, hates the Mets, hates the Phillies and all that stuff. So You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, which makes it a ton of fun. I'm excited for 1 o'clock, like sincerely excited, like giddy almost.
It is.
And I don't get giddy over baseball.
You can just imagine Philly fans because, the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. And now the Phillies, who like kind of limped down the stretch, you didn't even know if they were going to get in. Then they get in. Then they kind of shock some people. And it's the Philly sports fans riding high a little bit.
I told you there's a great video that was making like the social media run of a Seattle dad, and he goes to an elementary school and he's taking his kid out of the school, and the kid's thinking like he's going to the dentist, he's got a doctor's appointment, whatever it may be. And they get out and he's like, where are we going? And his dad like looks at him and he's like, the Mariners are in the playoffs. We're going to watch a baseball game. And he's like, we're not going to the dentist. And the kid, he's like, no. He's like, we're not going to the doctor. No. He's like, we're watching the Mariners. And he's like running down the steps. So I think Seattle right now is a magical place to be. I think Seattle, I think Philadelphia is having fun, but Seattle's got to be to the moon right now.
I think when you get into a place like here, our professional sports team is essentially Penn State football. Sure. But we're nowhere, you've got Eagles fans, you got Steeler fans, you got Yankee fans, you got Phillies fans and all this, and it's all divided. But when you get in a city, I did not know, to a lot of people when I lived in Baltimore, there was like, opening day was a holiday. People didn't go to work to a lot. Even if you were just a sports fan, because you get in these real sports cities, in Philadelphia, they root for the Flyers, they root for the Sixers, they root for the Eagles, they root for the Phillies. And when it kind of rolls around, but opening day in baseball, because of the time of year, it's like winter's over. We're getting into the summer and the spring, and it's almost, a changing of the guard almost, if you will. And regionally, baseball is such a regional game, but yes, there are the people in Philadelphia and Atlanta. There's not a lot of work getting done in Philadelphia this afternoon. It's just, It's not, because the Phillies are on an afternoon playoff game against the world champs.
Yes. Against who?
The world champs.
There we go. I would love to end the show on that personally. I don't think it's going to get any better.
I'll tell you this. I don't know if this will even be better, but it's good. I have a good friend who's a Mets fan, and I was texting him over the weekend, and he had some profanity about the Braves because he said they're really young, they're really good, and they're going to be good for a long time. Through the text, I could hear the pain in his voice as he was saying this because he's a Mets fan.
I was telling you, I was to 2028 through 2032, they're like locked in. Like it's the roster they have right now is going to be there, and they are all going into their prime. They just signed a reliever yesterday. A reliever or starter? We just signed somebody yesterday through 2029, and that is in our rotation. So they are locking it in, and they are like, good luck. Like this is who you're facing for the next 8-10 years. And you're going to have to try to beat them. It's really impressive.
Astros in Seattle are late afternoon. I want to say 3:30 or 4:30, something like that. The Yankees and Cleveland are prime time, and then the Dodgers are last because they're on the West Coast. Cleveland has got one of my favorite players in Major League Baseball, Jose Ramirez, who has one of the most boring typical names. Like there's nothing flashy about it's Jose Ramirez, but he is like the little engine that could for Cleveland. I think he's 5'9". He bats 30. I think he drove in 125 runs. So for those of you who obviously are rooting for the Yankees because we live way more in Yankee country than in Cleveland country, Cleveland's third baseman is super. And they did the same thing with him. He might be 28, and they locked him up to a reasonable long-term contract. And a lot of that Seattle's been doing it. It's the next wave in baseball. And some of these these smaller markets are doing well with it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. We can leave it at that. Are you good?
I am. It's a fun day of baseball. It is a really fun day of baseball. It's a good sports week, and it's warm out, so enjoy it while it's here.
All right. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news. And thank you to Weis Markets for being the title sponsor. Again, go get your grocery rewards, your gas rewards, and now be sure to get your Thanksgiving rewards. You can earn points all the way up to a turkey for Thanksgiving. Be sure to go to Weis Markets for all your grocery needs and much, much more.
Oh, tomorrow. We got to plug tomorrow.
Go for it.
Jason Fitzgerald is supposed to join us.
Yes.
We think, unless something comes up in his schedule. But I talked to him I talked to him over the weekend. I talked to him yesterday. If you don't know Jason, he is our political guru. He knows way more about this stuff than we do. I think we know kind of like the average American. We're interested in it. We see what we know. We discuss it. But Jason really knows what he's talking about, both from a modern day and the historical relevance, and he can tie things in. So I told him we want to have him on before the election. And he's like, well, I could come on twice. Like I could come on way early because there's a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of talking points now. And then right when we get up to it, maybe like the week before. So we're supposed to have Jason on tomorrow. And we always say that we've had him on maybe 2 or 3 times already.
Yeah, probably more.
He explains this stuff in a way that normal yucca pucks like us can understand it. And that's his best attribute.
Yeah, and he doesn't feel like he's talking down at you. Like he's sincerely interested in it, and he wants you to be interested in it as well. He's one of my favorite people we have on by far. So I'm excited.
Yes, it is enlightening. You will learn something no matter what side of the aisle you're on. And he's not going to come and bang on one side of the aisle. He's just going to give you a lesson, but you're going to learn something. It is interesting. He's very good.
For sure. Thanks again to Weis Markets. Thanks for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina, and we will see you guys tomorrow.